BeamNG is becoming a jack of all trades for everything that is motorized in it. This and more news from the world of sim racing right here, right now. This video is dedicated to the memory of actor Jim Ward, specially known as the voice of Captain Quark in Ratchet & Clank, but among gamers also as voice actor for Grim Fandango, Diablo 3 or Bioshock 2. Jim, thanks for your art. Greetings Romy, you're watching WromWrom, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing and a regular news roundup of weekly sim racing news. My name is Serta and I will be your host for this video. Even more big updates dropped this week and more are to come next week from, for example, Project Motor Racing. Speaking of PMR, the studio seems to have been on a tight budget as they have had to reduce the team by 6 people after the bad reception of the sim by us all. Maybe that tight budget is the reason they published it unfinished, which seems to be the general opinion of YouTube, including us. Their now former lead vehicle physics developer said as much in a post on LinkedIn. They could find work at Razer, who are expanding their team, and I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Let's get to the news. They had told us not to publish this info yet as there were some cogs in the process, and then they went and did published it in time. Software development can be that way. Project Motor Racing rolled out patch 1502 this week, and while the patch notes read like a laundry list of improvements, there's actually some substantial stuff here worth paying attention to. The headline feature is a much needed complete rework of tire behavior for GT3 and GT4 cars, the most popular racing classes. They've also tweaked handling for several other classes including GTE and Porsche Cup cars. On the technical side, they've improved force feedback for popular wheels from Fanatec, Logitech and Thrustmaster. They've also renamed one force feedback option for clarity, though they don't specify which one or what was unclear about it. The menus supposedly navigate more smoothly now, and they've cleaned up the steering calibration screens, though cleaner and clearer is one of those descriptions that could mean anything from a minor font change to a complete redesign. My hope is on the latter. The minimap specifically got a performance boost and there are various HUD fixes throughout. The sim now supports updated translations in Spanish, Czech, French and German. The graphics department got some love too. Cockpits are brighter, reflections won't blind you anymore in replays, and they've updated the trackside trees. Yes, trees. There's a long list of track fixes covering everything from Nürburgring to Spa to various other circuits, addressing things like floating objects, crowd placement and collision issues. They've specifically made adjustments at Derby National to prevent drivers from exploiting shortcuts and gaining unfair advantages. Also, they've made automatic downshifts smoother so you won't accidentally stall your car trying to slow down, plus they've adjusted steering angle limits to stop your tires from clipping through the car bodywork. The online experience should be more stable with faster leaderboard loading and fixes for bugs that could freeze the game at the end of races. They've also added safety measures to prevent certain rare crashes, which is developer speak for we fixed some bugs that probably shouldn't have made it into the released version. Individual cars got attention too, everything from fixing wonky gauges in the Sauber C9 to stopping the BMW M4 GT4's rear brake disc from wobbling like it's got a flat tire. The Aston Martin Valkyrie even got a new engine sound mix because apparently the previous one wasn't doing justice to that hypercar. On the quality of life front, default vehicle setups now automatically load when they're available and show up in your setup list. Your active setup also auto-saves between sessions now, so you won't lose your tweaks. For the modding community, they've added debug keys that let you jump between AI opponents, which should make testing custom content easier. It's a solid update that touches pretty much every part of the sim. Whether all these refinements and optimizations actually translate to a noticeably better experience, well, you'll have to fire it up and see for yourself. Rennsport's patch 117 just dropped and it's mostly housekeeping stuff, but there's some really useful improvements in there. Let's start with the headline grabber. The safety car has been sent to timeout. Yep, it's been temporarily benched from online contests because, well, it apparently forgot how to do its one job. The developers admit it needs to learn how to behave, which is a delightfully honest way of saying it was causing chaos instead of preventing it. On the car front, the Praga R1 got some new rubber and setup tweaks. Nothing earth-shattering there, just the usual fine-tuning you'd expect. The AI drivers got several fixes. The devs smooth out how AI follows the racing line and stop them from being quite so aggressive about diving back onto it at race starts. Oh, and they fixed a weird bug where already retired AI cars were somehow still setting lap times after sessions ended. Crash fixes are always welcome, and this patch squashes several related to pit crews. Speaking of pits, the Ford Mustang GT3 had its fuel cap on the wrong side, which was making the crew do some strange gymnastics. That's been sorted. Console players will appreciate not getting spammed with "controller disconnected" message mid-race anymore when their gamepad dozes off. The default button bindings also got updated because people kept accidentally hitting the ignition button, which seems like a pretty important thing to not hit by mistake. The multifunction display can now scroll both ways instead of just forward, which seems like basic functionality, but hey, better late than never. There's also a new rejoin button for official contests if you disconnect during practice or qualifying, though you're out of luck if it happens during the actual race. Spectator and replay mode got some love too. The free camera tilt button that went missing has been restored. There's a new live button to jump straight to the current action in live replays, and those visibility bindings from managing the spectator overlay are actually working now. Rounding things out, championship progress will actually update properly now, and anti-aliasing settings will stick around instead of mysteriously resetting themselves. The developers are happy with how crossplay has turned out, even if it ate into the time to program other stuff. Speaking of which, the Endurance Classics DLC has been moved to February 2026. Nothing revolutionary here, just the kind of nuts and bolts work that keeps a racing sim running smoothly. Well, except for that safety car, it was definitely not running smoothly. Reza is expanding the team and are searching for a software engineer, a systems and IT manager, a game producer, an audio designer, a 3D environment artist, a texture artist, a 3D vehicle artist, and a community manager. They do mean expanding. Details following the link in our description. RaceRoom had a very small patch, adding a default controller profile for VNM wheelbases, reducing the number of multiplayer locks, and fixing the Porsche logo on the splash screen. Here's a sim we don't talk about much, but that's alive and kicking. Live for Speed just released an update introducing day and night cycles, updating the cars so they can be driven at night, and the tracks of course too. Also, physics now run at 1000 Hz and the timings now support milliseconds. The release is something like a beta, although they call it public testing. Same difference. A Q&A for ACRally this past week kept a lot of information vague. Half an hour of maybes, and sometimes later we kinda know that at some point ACRally will arrive to consoles. Also, without a definitive date, is the release of the Skoda Fabia Rally 2 and winter conditions. The amount of things they are working on was big, but we'll tell you about them when they're a reality. Before that, they're as interesting as my plans for world domination. Right, Pinky? We covered the big flashy stuff from Le Mans Ultimate's 1.2 update last week, see the link up there, but there's a mountain of other changes tucked into the patch notes of the now released patch. Let's run through what else got tweaked, fixed and improved. Championships and team stuff got some housekeeping. There's now an active championships page, so you can actually see what's going on, and they fixed a bug where usernames with hashtags and numbers were getting kicked out with no vehicle errors. AI teams with only 2 drivers were mysteriously putting driver 2 in the car instead of, the actual second driver's name. That's sorted out. For team events, they fixed an issue where different lineups from the same team were getting identical driver rating changes despite finishing in completely different positions. There's also a new scroll bar for post-race driver stats when you've got more than 3 drivers. Race Control got a new matchmaking option that lets event organizers prioritize driver badge categories over driver rank when creating splits. They also fix inappropriate class splits for endurance events. Driver swaps had a couple of issues. Hypercars were getting their batteries mysteriously refilled during handovers in event teams, which seems like cheating with extra steps. The exit vehicle button was also popping up mid-swap, which is not ideal timing. There was an issue where some plugins would randomly trigger brake replacements in the pit menu, which has been fixed. They've added a shared memory header file to the support folder for the new shared memory implementation, plus batch files to install and uninstall easy anti-cheat for troubleshooting. And if past experience with other software packages is anything to go by, there's gonna be a lot of troubleshooting needed for the easy anti-cheat malware. I mean software. What was I thinking? Multiple time penalties now combine into existing stop-and-go penalties rather than stacking separately. They added new engineer messages at the end of races, though the notes don't specify what those actually say. They also fix real road grip levels now progressing correctly in online events, which is kind of important for a feature that's supposed to simulate track evolution. Graphics improvements go beyond just the texture streaming. Car dirt builds up faster in rain now, windscreens clean quicker during pit stops, and spray from cars ahead has been reduced with better droplet clearing at speed. Auto wipers now kick in when spray hits your windscreen. They've also tweaked atmospheric balance when it's overcast or raining, reviewed cloud material, slightly reduced spray opacity, and updated damage rendering on car shaders. The sun glare now works more naturally with occlusion and dawn-dusk color changes. There's also improved graphics optimization when cars are retired in race sessions and sitting in the garage. HUD updates include a connected players component for team events and a telemetry recording icon in the tachometer. You can now change your radar overlap lateral detection increased by 2 meters, and they fixed being unable to reselect repair all after switching repair options. They also fixed options that shouldn't be changeable on fixed setup servers being accessible in the pit stop tab on the MFD. Physics received some important updates beyond the rim thermals. They've improved the accuracy of initial road temperatures at session start and corrected an issue where rubber temperature wasn't affecting static grip. Telemetry got a complete overhaul. Beyond the new DuckDB recording system, you can now bind a hotkey for telemetry recording and enable automatic recording in gameplay settings. The file naming format has also been changed. Track limits got stricter. Rack up 15 or more track limit points and you're getting disqualified. Illegal passes now earn time penalties, and the monitoring system better tracks which cars are actually ahead of you to reduce false positives. Race starts had a weird backward driving before the timer hit 0 would send you to the pit lane, then disqualify you. That's been fixed. The class cap at race starts has also been increased to 2 rows. Limited tire rules had a display bug where drivers who finished on wet tires were showing as having finished on mediums in the results. That's been corrected. Replays were jumping to the beginning when you toggled live mode off, which is now fixed. The car damage indicator wasn't showing damage and replays from long endurance events weren't uploading. All sorted. Settings improvements. You can't accidentally change the viewed card while driving anymore, since those keys are disabled during races. They fixed crashes related to incorrect video configurations and audio device restarts. The user interface got several quality of life improvements. Clicking the top bar profile icon now takes you to your profile page. Setup nodes are back in the setup manager modal. Intro music volume is now linked to the menu music level. The in-game exit button icon was updated. The return to menu button in online and single player got updated for when events finished, and the Silverstone background image was refreshed. There's also a new UI option for texture streaming in graphic settings. Now for the car specific stuff, and there's a lot of it. Most of the hypercar and LMDH updates are cosmetic and dashboard fixes. The GT3 cars received similar treatment: headlines, brake lines, RPM lights, and various visual glitches across the board. The LMP2 and LMP3 classes got the more substantial changes, with, for example, the ELMS spec Oreca 07 LMP2 Plus getting adjusted per track aero packages for Spa, Fuji, Bahrain, now all high downforce, and Monza, now medium downforce, plus revised aerodynamics and updated default setups. Also, they fixed brake failures on the Mercedes GT3 and Aston Martin Valkyrie hypercar and revised rear wing damage thresholds across the board. LMP3 tire sidewall textures were updated. Track-specific fixes include Imola getting minor asset loading improvement, Lusail's apron and runoff grip and bumpiness revised, Silverstone not having rain inside the first 3 garages, and Spa got curb camber reviewed, plus an anti-cut curb added at no-name corner and revised chicane apex curb profile. All tracks also got updated real road profiles. Oh, and they fixed a crash relating to a Seagull. You heard that right. Seagull 01 was apparently loading Paul Ricard's mesh incorrectly because of a missing animation. A bird emoji in the patch notes suggests they found this amusing too. There's also mention of missing Spanish translations being added and an intermittent UI error pop-up on practice servers being squashed. The developers weren't kidding when they said they barely touched the surface in their announcement. This patch is absolutely stuffed with fixes and improvements. It's a kind of comprehensive update that shows the team really listening to feedback and methodically working through issues, even if some of them, looking at you Seagull Crash, are pretty bizarre. BeamNG.drive just dropped update 0.38 and it's packed with 2 massive new work vehicles, a marble quarry playground, and some really interesting experimental rally features. The headline additions are the Hirochi HT55 haul truck and WL40 wheel loader, proper heavy machinery that goes way beyond just being big vehicles. The HT55 is a 55-ton capacity off-highway dump truck. You can deck it out with locking diffs, rocket ejectors, and yes, J-to rockets, because of course you can. The W40 wheel loader is where things get interesting mechanically. It's got joystick-operated articulated hydraulic steering, a rigid front axle with pivoting rear axle, and something called a rim pull control pedal that adjusts torque delivery for smoother operation. The lift capacity varies based on your loader type, attachments, and counterweight setup. It comes with a universal bucket and heavy-duty forks for shifting marble blocks around, plus you can add a hydraulically operated log grapple for forestry work. These two work together, of course. The loader fills the truck with rocks, marble blocks, or whatever else needs hauling around the new Quarry area. Pretty much every vehicle in the game got some kind of attention. For example, the Bruckle Moonhawk had its front hub J-beam geometry adjusted for more stiffness. Both ETK models got improved rigidity in their front and rear suspension structures, and the Hirochi Sunburst fixed the conflict between chassis stiffening and rally front suspension that was making some notes lighter than they should be. But the list is more extensive than that. For the full list, follow the link in our description. Across all vehicles there was a major materials and textures cleanup. Wheel meshes got normalized scaling, support beam brake groups were tweaked on most vehicles, and several incorrect support beams on the common ambulance upfit for Gavril trucks were fixed. Various parts had incorrect PSI spelling corrected, and the Ibishu turbo and steel wheel meshes had incorrect rotation corrected. New props include marble blocks, 19-ton and 38-ton variants with optional wooden supports for easier pickup, and a pile of 100 spherical rocks of varying sizes that's easy to scoop up with a loader bucket. The logs got a complete and comprehensive remaster, and other props got updates too. Cinder block walls now have new sounds and way realistic amounts. Concrete retaining walls got new sounds, as did rocks and boulders, and shipping containers got simplified 20 feet and 40 feet variants for trailers, plus improved door handle animation. The log trailer got a new variant for those longer 12-meter logs, and the flatbed trailer added marble block loads and haul truck tire loads. Container trailers got those simplified containers by default with interiors removed for optimization. Speaking of which, Italy now has a marble quarry area designed specifically for heavy machinery gameplay with several new missions. You'll be doing garage-to-garage transport runs with various worksite vehicles, hauling the truck loaded with 2 marble blocks to the main cutting area, ferrying marble side trailers with a T-series, and a lot more. The developers also slashed Italy's asset storage from 60 GB down to 40 GB through cleanup and deduplication, which is a nice bonus that won't make headlines but definitely helps your hard drive breathe easier. And now things get really interesting. The developers are introducing survivor pace timing for rally stages and needs a direct response to people treating individual stages like hot lapping competitions. Instead of just your fastest time, survivor pace evaluates your last few attempts, including DNFs, and computes a final time based on all of them. The goal is to incentivize finishing stages even after mistakes, rewarding smarter risk management and consistent driving over that one lucky fast run. They've also adding rally loop mode, which they openly admit it's experimental, buggy and missing polish as they didn't have time to implement some elements. But the concept is compelling. You're simulating an actual rally day starting from Service Park, driving liaisons between stages while following an official schedule, watching for time control penalties, respecting speed limits on public roads, though traffic isn't implemented yet, completing the stages fast and hopefully making it back to service. Since realistic rally schedules require a lot of waiting, there's a clock skip feature. If you're within 50 meters of a time control with the vehicle stopped, you can skip forward to your due time to avoid early penalties without waiting. If staged at the start line, you can skip to the 10-second mark of your countdown. The developers know this requires jumping between adrenaline-filled stage runs and calculated, careful driving on liaisons, a really unusual mix of mentalities for a racing sim. They're curious about community reception and what effect it has on the competitive side of the community, explicitly asking for feedback to tweak and improve the feature. Career got price negotiation when buying or selling vehicles, where you can haggle with private sellers through an interactive system that reacts to market value and seller patience, with each counter offer dynamically updating based on how far your bid strays from asking price, complete with a visible patience meter that adds tension and realism. The couple of examples I've seen from players denote more an unnerving to and fro rather than real negotiations, but maybe my friends are too impatient. They fixed filtering issues where vehicles were incorrectly filtered by manufactured year, made various changes to dealership filters, and increased model variety in all dealerships. The insurance system got a major overhaul after reviewing community feedback. There are now 3 insurance classes: daily driver for casual vehicles, prestige for exotics, commercial for trucks, buses, commercial vehicles, with 3 providers each offering different perks like refueling discounts, free roadside assistance, cheaper repairs, cheaper premiums, etc. You pay premiums every 100 kilometers driven under one provider. If 2 vehicles are insured under the same provider and one drives 50 kilometers while the other drives 51 kilometers, the premium gets paid. Premium costs are based on total insured vehicle value under that provider. Multi-vehicle group discount tiers kick in when you insure more expensive vehicles under one provider, lowering premiums. Driver score is now a single 0 to 100 value, shared across all providers that directly affects premiums. And I've got as much of a headache now as I do when having to do with my insurance. Delivery gameplay got a new minor tutorial at the beginning. General improvements include a skid path test added to performance assessment for evaluating cornering ability, the ability to set custom prices when listing vehicles for sale, fixes for the back button leading to wrong screens in many cases, and updated styles for various career menus, including the computer and progress screens. The free roam selector is now a multi-step wizard where you choose location, then vehicle, then options like traffic and time of day. It remembers your last setup and you can skip straight to loading with a button on the bottom right. There's a new gameplay selector working like the vehicle selector for challenges, scenarios and campaigns, replacing the old menus with shortcuts to the selector with preset filters. Traffic vehicles got several updates and the walking mode added translation support for input actions. DualSense and DualShock for PlayStation controllers now have extended support including vibration, trigger vibration and light bar functionality over both USB and access controller, plus any third-party PS5 gamepads. The developers recommend turning off software that emulates different controllers like Steam Input on DS4 Windows when using PS4, PS5 gamepads. All supported controllers now share a common action binding file similar to X-input controllers. They recommend keeping firmware up to date using PlayStation's PC software. The force feedback system now has improved safety checks on update rates. If you picked an excessive rate that your wheel can't handle, the system automatically rejects it and falls back to something safer. Hydraulics got significant updates on all vehicles. In-engine preheat temperatures now adjust based on thermostat setting, and extreme brake bias values no longer negatively affect parking brake performance. Wheel rim heating is now a thing. The rim exchanges heat with its environment, so brake discs and tires directly affect each other thermally. This results in more consistent warming parameters and improved behavior in cold temperatures, something that can be used to warm tires fast as you can do in ACC. Following their previous announcement, BeamNG.drive 0.38 includes the second and final round of improvements for user folder changes during major updates. Mods will be temporarily deactivated after major updates as usual to give mod makers time to ensure compatibility and prevent excessive bug reports, while regular users suffer fewer issues. A user folder cleanup, cache clean, happens whenever a major update is detected. Unlike the migration system, this cleanup happens even if you skip the launcher and isn't Windows specific, so Linux users benefit too. The old user folder migration system isn't used anymore unless you update it from 0.36 or older. Steam Deck users, and only Steam Deck for now, other platforms next year, get cloud saving for most data including machine agnostic settings, vehicle configurations and others. Dynamic cloud saving is available. Files sync not only at launch but also when you suspend your console. Files that are typically big, replays, mods, screenshots aren't synchronized to prevent running out of cloud storage. East Coast USA got road drivability adjustments. New algorithm for traffic density spreads vehicles more on isolated or rough roads. Fixed loading issues when traffic is queued while the level is still loading, which should address situations where traffic vehicles would never respawn. AI racing logic got work in progress improvements for opponent awareness and tracking, plus improvements in overtaking decision making and behavior, and the traffic manager tool got improvements for lane aware and road direction based spawning. The Rally editor got a new corner measurement tool that measures corner shape and automatically sets pace note corner severity, length and radius change for high precision and consistency. VR added a new force horizon lock in driver camera setting to reduce discomfort during rollovers, stunts and similar situations. For convenience, this setting also appears under the camera options menu. Cameras added lock pitch to horizon for driver camera, complementing the existing lock roll to horizon setting, and increased how high the driver camera can look up to make more clickable controls accessible while driving heavy machinery. Replay fixed vehicle damage persisting from previous sessions during playback and fixed glitches with prop rotation during playback, like steering wheel snapping to incorrect angles. The Linux version got several important fixes. Force feedback is properly disabled while the game is paused, lighting glitches from a bug in the light sorting algorithm were fixed, a process hanging after resize on NVIDIA GPUs was resolved, and many other improvements. The Lua API also got extensive changes which are too granular and detailed to describe. This is once again a really massive update that goes well beyond just adding 2 vehicles. The rally features alone represent a pretty significant philosophical shift in how stage driving could work in sims explicitly designed to combat the hot lapping mentality. The heavy machinery brings legitimate new gameplay mechanics with its hydraulic systems and joystick steering rather than just being novelty vehicles scaled up. The 33% storage reduction on Italy through deduplication is a kind of unglamorous backend work that won't get headlines but makes everyone's experience better. Whether the experimental rally stuff sticks around in its current form will depend heavily on community feedback, which the developers are explicitly and repeatedly soliciting throughout the notes. And we've not gone into all the details, or we would still be talking about this update tomorrow. Again, we put a link in our description to the complete and very long list.